You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Resilient Podcast. I am your host, Rob Aurelius. Today in studio virtually, I have a longtime friend by the name of Yina Harris. I've known Yina for almost 20 years now. And, we were teenagers when we first met, but, now we're older. And Yina has not aged. I told her that earlier when I spoke to her, that she has not aged a lot. And, I'm glad to have Yina on the show today because, with it being Women's History Month, I wanted to find someone that would be a great guest for the show today. And I don't think there could have been anybody better than her. So, Yina, thank you for being on the Resilient Podcast. I appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, Rob, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about what I do and about women. So that's exciting.
Of course. So, first of all, happy Women's History Month to you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
know International Women's Day was a few days ago, probably like about a week ago or so.
Yes. Correct.
I'm very big on women's rights. Yeah, you probably know this from like
Mhm.
some of my social media posts. The most important person in my life was my grandmother, who happens to be a woman. So, that's the main reason why I respect women. I support women. I love when women start their own businesses. I love when this whole women empowerment thing became more serious because, like I tell a lot of people and my friends as well, my guy friends, we wouldn't be anywhere without women. We need women because, first of all, women give birth to us. So,
Amen to that.
we're all here because of a woman, a
Mhm.
mother, and we have to treat women with respect and we have to love them and appreciate them. So, Yina, I know that you are a mother of two
I am.
and you're happily married. I remember your firstborn, your daughter. She's grown up to be such a beautiful young lady.
Thank you.
And I think you're doing a great job with parenthood. So continue to do that.
I appreciate
Believe
that.
it or not, you inspire me with how you are and who you are as a person. So I remember a few months ago, you and I we've always like chatted on and off,
Mhm.
but I know that we recently connected because it was election season.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we were able to agree to disagree. And it just shows me how level-headed and mature you are. We didn't necessarily have the same views, but there was
Mhm.
it was like a Saturday or something. I remember you and I were going back and forth, and I was sending you a
Yeah.
lot of voice
Yeah.
notes, and you had to
Yeah.
get
I
your
think
day
both of
started. Yeah.
us.
But I like how we were able to respect one another. And I've tried that with so many people. Sometimes I don't have the same results, but I appreciate those people that can be able to understand where I'm coming from, my perspective of things, and why I feel the way that I do, and vice versa. I
Yeah, for
respect who
sure.
you are. I do know, that a few years ago, you came up with your own company,
Mhm.
and it goes by the name of Blend.
Yes.
And blend is actually spelled not the way we think, but it's
No.
actually BL number 3ND.
Mhm.
It's right here on the screen on the bottom. And I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to start Blend?
Absolutely. So, I've been in healthcare for over a decade now,
Okay.
and I've been doing psychiatry for almost 5 years, going on 5 years.
Hmm.
And in the beginning of my career, I noticed that when I was doing evaluations and I was seeing people for medication management, that a lot of people were asking me for holistic treatment. And I had no idea. I was like, I really don't know what guidance to give you. So I was like, wow, there's a real need for a practice that focuses on prescribing medications, but also herbal medication, holistic. Um, it might be a great idea to create a company that blends Western and Eastern medicine. So that started in 2021 as just Blend Telepsych with no three, and then it evolved into this idea um, when I became more spiritual, and I decided to then create a faith-based brand where we provide AI services for all medical providers or an AI solution, a faith-based telepsychiatry company that blends Western and Eastern medicine with faith and God, and also a staffing agency that provides medical providers to clinics and places that need healthcare providers. And it's been a journey, but here we are. And now looking for a name. I had to choose a name, and Blend was already taken. So I was like, wow, it's three companies. Let me do the three and the E to kind of pull it all together. So that
Wow.
Blend was created. It started as a telepsychiatry company that blended Western and Eastern medicine and turned into this brand. And we are in the process of we're at the end of the trademark process, so which is pretty cool. And then I'll be able to kind of do other venture into other areas.
Very nice. Now that you mentioned that to me, I wanted to know, um, was there a defining moment that led you to create an AI driven solution for mental health offices?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened was that I actually got a virtual assistant
Hmm.
um, when I started to go on my own for Blend Telepsych. Um, I was working for several companies, and I was like, well, I need to go privately because I want to be able to incorporate God in what I do and faith. And a lot of companies were not okay with that. So I wanted to create that type of telepsychiatry company and holistic and all that. And when I had my virtual assistant, she wasn't very productive. Um, I was paying a lot of money, and you get like a hub where you can see in that hub how much they're doing, and it
Hmm.
takes screenshots and it gives you a percentage of how much work they did. And I realized that she was only working 50% of the time, and
Oh,
I was like, wow, I need something else, like an ad for an AI company. I called them, I told them what I needed, and they actually had a referral partnership, and we actually became a collaborating partner with them, and decided to do mental health and target mental health care providers because there's a need, and it led to now us targeting all providers, um, and just giving them the solution, this AI solution with a chat. Essentially, what the agents do is they mimic a virtual assistant,
hmm.
but they never get sick. They don't need benefits. They are always happy and in a good mood, and they work 24 hours and 7 days a week for you for an equivalent price of what you would pay for outsourcing a virtual assistant in another country. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. I would love to present this to other people because that would be make them more competitive. AI is a new thing, it's a new wave, it's not going away. So why not jump on that bandwagon and kind of create this solution for other providers because I know healthcare. So
Very, very interesting. Very
mhm,
interesting. I know that this AI thing is new, and
it is.
I've had my company, ARCG Media, for the last 12 years, and my employees have been entertaining the fact of, hey, Rob, maybe we should try AI. And I said, is it because you guys want to do less work now? And they're like, no, it's just that we just want to explore with it. So it's crazy. I have a lot of clients that have been talking to me about how AI is working for them. Um, I have also heard a lot of my friends that have businesses as well too, friends and associates that have businesses that are saying, "Hey, AI is really taking over.
Mhm.
We're losing some work, but we're also able to promote ourselves better because of this AI
Mhm.
thing." And I'm like, okay. I said, I'm still not really dependable of the AI. I've tried it out. I recently started entertaining Chat GBT
Okay.
because one of my employees brought it up to my attention, and I was like, okay, Chat GBT. And he's like, come on,
Yeah.
Rob, you're a marketing guy, you should know about this. And I was like, yeah, but these are type of things that I try to stay away from. But before Chat GBT was out there, I was using things like Grammarly and whatnot to like help me write something because I
And that's
wasn't
a
the
form of
best.
it. That's a
Yeah,
form of AI, yeah.
yeah. So I wasn't the best at writing essays in school.
Mhm.
But for some reason, once I became a marketing person, and I guess through the years of experience and doing a little bit of public relation work for some of my clients, I learned how to like write, very good captions because I was a social media manager and still am a social media manager for a lot of brands. And one of the things that people like about my company is that we write very good captions, and we know
It's
how to.
important, those SEOs.
Yeah, we know how
Mhm.
to tell good stories. So, actually, Oscar, who was on this podcast last year, who works with ARCG Media, and we talked about faith and whatnot, because he's a man of faith. Oscar's been, one of the people behind the scenes for the last 12 years for ARCG. He's also one of the person that helps put this podcast together after
Oh,
post
wow.
production. So, when I told him that I was going to be interviewing you, he was very excited because he was like, "Oh, someone who understands what AI is and
Oh,
someone who
yeah, for
understands
sure.
tech and all that stuff."
Mhm.
So I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. And folks, I mentioned earlier when this podcast started that I've known Yina for a long time. When I met Yina, she did not have any of the degrees. She has
No,
5 degrees now,
I do.
and I've never called you this, so it's the first time I'm actually saying this. But Yina's a doctor, so
I am.
her name is Dr. Yina Harris, and it's crazy to say that I personally know someone who's a doctor. Not a doctor that I met at a clinic already, but this is someone that I knew from many years ago who became a doctor. So I'm very proud of you.
No, thank
Um,
you.
and my next question to you is, as a
Mhm.
woman in business, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced with what, like literally launching Blend, and how did you push through them?
Um, I don't like to generalize, but, it's the for the most part, men tend to be more aggressive when it comes to business. And women are, more, I guess, more like, I guess, more gentler. And I think that even though I'm a woman that's extremely strong, I'm still a woman. And so there's a like I guess a gentleness. I guess there's a nurturing part of me. And so kind of being taken seriously was probably one of the hardest things, to feel confident in myself, even in areas that I have, like in fields and things that I've never done. So
Mhm.
I think that that's really what it is being taken seriously as a woman has probably been one of the things that I've had to kind of push through, because we're seen as more, not as aggressive as men, especially
Okay.
in the tech world. So
I like that. I really do. We did mention that it's Women's History Month, and my next question to you in regards to Women's History Month is about celebrating the achievements of women. So I wanted to ask you, what does this month mean to you personally and professionally?
personally, as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, um, it's great to, for us to be put in the forefront as women,
Mm.
and kind of, I mean, I know people know we're here, right? But to be celebrated, it's a beautiful thing. And professionally, um, I think it shows that women can be strong. We can be entrepreneurs. We can be business owners. We can persevere. I think that it also breaks stereotypes that women only, are we only, back then were able to be moms and wives, and now we're actually doing bigger things and bigger things in society, and we're able to actually launch businesses. And I think that it makes women just kind of these strengths that we have that maybe weren't very prominent or didn't really weren't showcased before be showcased. So I think it's important that we continue to have this every year so that people can't forget, hey, we're here. We're not just, we're not just giving birth to you guys, but we are able to do other things, and also be in leadership roles and that type of stuff.
That's good. You just mentioned that you want people to know that women are just not giving birth.
Hmm.
So and that women are there's more women in tech nowadays and just women in
Hmm.
business in general, which is a good
Hmm.
thing. So my next question to you is, there is often a lack of representation for women in tech and in entrepreneurship. We know that. Um, but I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to women looking to start their own businesses, especially in a male dominated industry?
That even when they're overwhelmed, not to give up. Being an entrepreneur, being a business person is very scary for any gender, right? And I think people like to be in their in their comfort. They like to be in their safe space. And when things get hard, people want to kind of stop doing the thing that they really want to do. So even when things get hard, even when you don't understand something, don't give up, because you're strong, you're intelligent, you can totally do it. I'm doing it. I knew nothing about tech. I'm in the medical field, but I'm learning slowly. It's a process. It's scary, especially with the AI stuff that's so new. Um, but I've always been a go getter. I've always been somebody that has stuck to a task and has completed it. So I would just say, even when things get a little overwhelming and you feel like anxious, to just want the outcome of that, once you push through that anxiety, is so worth it. So
I like that. In my last episode, we celebrated a milestone 25 episodes of the Resilient Podcast. I started this podcast back in April of 2024. Yina, I shared with you my story as to why I created the podcast. Someone motivated me to start something I never thought I could do. So it was, to be able to put out those 25 episodes and now episode number 26 with you, it took a lot of resilience. And Yina, I'm sure that you know what resilience is and what it means. A lot of people are asking me ever since I started this podcast, what is resilience? What is resilience? And then sometimes I tell them this is the definition or look it up. I actually have a um poster in the back. You may not be able to see it very well, but
I can't see it.
it says resilience turns setbacks into comebacks. And I have been very, very resilient in the last year and a half. I've been resilient pretty much a very long, like for the majority of my life, I've been very resilient. So I wanted to ask you, what was the most resilient moment in your life?
Whew, that's a loaded question. So I think that for me, it was being a young mother, and now understanding at that point that I had to now provide this life for this child, and figuring out, okay, now how do I do that? Because now it's not about me, it's about her. So I think that being a young mom and then choosing at the age of 24 to be a single parent because that relationship was no longer serving me was probably the beginning of the resilience, of the pushing through obstacles in life and pushing through hard times. And it hasn't been easy, but I like I said, I'm a person that will push through. trials and tribulations, and I'm still human, and I have my bad moments and I have my good moments. And and I think that just being a young mom and then being a single parent was probably one of the hardest um decisions. It was a beautiful thing to have a kid. I wouldn't turn back time. I would do it again. I would I My daughter has been my motivation and where I am today. Um but the single parent choosing to take that chance was probably one of the hardest points in my life, um, because I think single moms are always looked at differently. I was a single young mom. So, I think that was probably the time where I had to push through and not dwell on my feelings and kind of get things done for my kid.
To add to that question, I wanted to also ask, what does resilience mean to you and how has it shaped your journey?
Resilience means pushing through all the obstacles, the ebbs and flows of life, right? They're going to always be there. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs.
Mhm,
And even when we think that certain things are going to bring us happiness, we realize that that's not the truth when we get there.
mhm,
So I think resilience means just pushing through. Resilience has shaped my journey because without me being resilient, I don't think I would be here.
mhm,
Because even after being a young single mother, there were a lot of obstacles that I had to overcome to become a healthcare professional. And even within my career, there were people that I had to deal with, that made my job not such a great, always like a happy place,
mhm,
or maybe want to give up,
mhm,
um, or change paths. But I chose to just embrace those negative feelings and move forward.
mhm,
And I think that early on in my life, something that I learned about myself kind of through this process of growing up was that I used to self sabotage. So if I was at the end of a finish line, I would do something not to finish. And the first time I decided to no longer self sabotage and actually get something that I wanted to accomplish done, it was like opening a Pandora's box. So after that, there was no stopping me. And as you can see, 5 degrees later and over 10 years in healthcare, and a and senior in high school now, my youngest who's got into Rutgers University for pre-law, like I've
Wow,
pushed
congratulations,
through.
sir.
Thank you. I've pushed through. And it's just taking that first step of kind of pushing through, that goal that you thought maybe you couldn't accomplish or people told you you couldn't accomplish. After that, it's just smooth sail because you learn that you are strong and you learn that you can do things that other people say or that you sometimes don't feel that you can kind of get through and do.
Mhm. You mentioned a word that has been very relevant in my head the last few weeks. Um, last week was one of the most difficult weeks for me because it made a year since my ex-girlfriend and I broke up.
Hmm.
And, you know, it was very difficult to get through that day that's itself. And
Hmm.
all I kept thinking about, and even having this conversation with my therapist and friends, was self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is real. Sometimes a lot of people are in denial for so long that everything that's happening to them is because of
Of X, Y,
self-sabotage.
and
They sometimes they don't even know what self-sabotage means. When
hmm.
I first heard the word self-sabotage, I was like, wait, what does that mean? And somebody says you're sabotaging your own life.
Mhm, mhm,
And you're some people are aware of it, some people are not. I was in denial for a very long time. I guess it had a lot to do with my insecurities and how I was raised and how often I was neglected as a child, that no one was ever there for me, to the point that I spent a majority of my young life asking people to show me love and attention and affection. And then unfortunately, sometimes I would self sabotage and push them away.
mm,
And, one day I finally said to myself, why do I only have the people that are here to destroy me in my life? And then the people who actually have good intentions with me, I push them away. Now I've made the distinction of trying to make sure that those people that are only here to try to do bad by my side, I try to, get them out of the picture and
Mm.
just keep the people that are meant to be good people for me. And unfortunately, I have had a lot of people from my past that had nothing but good intentions that I pushed away because of my self-sabotaging, who no longer want to be a part of my life. And some of them will say, well, congratulations, you're doing a podcast. Congratulations that your company is this year old now. I'm glad to hear that you started this platform called the Resilience Tribune, and I'm glad to hear about all your accomplishments. But I'm not interested in being friends with you or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it makes me think to myself, like, look, I lost a lot of good folks, and that's fine because that's how life is. Not
Yeah,
everyone
you
is meant.
to stay. Hmm.
Yeah, not everybody is meant to stay in your life
Hmm.
forever. And you mentioned I know you and I had a personal conversation before we got on the podcast, and you mentioned that you don't that you regretted some things and some things you don't regret. But
Hmm.
um I've always been the type of person to say live life with no regrets. But I wish that if I knew the things that I know now, and I have been able to reach out to so many of these people that I unfortunately hurt during the self-sabotage journey of mine. And I've been able to make peace with some of them. I've been able to make peace with myself because some of them have not been able to come back or recover. Some of these people are
Hmm.
not even around anymore. Some of these people, unfortunately, no longer with us. And some of these people, unfortunately, sometimes they disappear. You never hear from them ever again.
Hmm.
So I remember waking up one day and saying, look, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing a apology tour.
You
you
can't.
know I'm not going to go around to every single person that I've hurt through my self-sabotaging ways and apologize, because again, some of them will be there to I've actually had people say, like, oh, I was waiting for you to come back and tell me that you were sorry. And I was like, really? And I was really surprised when I had some people say that to me. But I said, look, we learn in life. We go through so many phases, so many things. For the longest time, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I used to walk around with a chip on my shoulder. I remember recently, when we were talking, you also said something to me like, "Oh, I never got that from you. I never." And I was like, it's funny because a lot of people were complaining to me about a lot of things, and I finally started taking accountability for my actions, and I finally started to realize that it was self-sabotage when I started therapy. I
Mm.
was in denial for so long, and I was losing a lot of the good people. And one of the things that everybody that I was losing had in common is that they were telling me who I was. So I was getting a lot of, you're a narcissist, you're this, you're that, you are a gaslighter, you're an emotional manipulator, and all these things. And it took me a while to realize, that over the years, all the things I was doing to people was projection.
Mm.
And that all those things that they were saying, like the gaslighting, the emotional manipulation, it was done to me, you know, stems from my childhood. It was coming from my family. It was coming from friends. It was coming from people that I trusted, people that I respected. I grew up um, being easily influenced by a lot of things. And some of these folks that I looked up to who were like mentors turned out to be very, very, uh, unfortunately, difficult people to
Mm.
deal with. And I was able to understand that everything that I was going through was a lesson. Like it was teaching me the tolerance levels of things, like who I wanted to be, what I didn't want to do growing up. And I'm glad that those things happened, because I was able to understand, the difference between this is something I don't want to do that I've seen somebody do, right? And this is something that influenced me. And because of that, now I am more empathetic. Now I take mental health very serious. I've been a mental health advocate for a very long time. I've had a lot of friends that have come up to me and have confided in me because of that, because they're like, look, nobody understands that people can be depressed. A few years ago, I had a friend of mine come up to me and they were suicidal. And they said, how can you go out to the world and let people know that you're going through something when you have someone like Andrew Tate with this huge platform of his telling people that if you are depressed, that you're a sucker, that you're a loser, that you're a coward. And they said, do you personally believe that, Rob, that when you're depressed, you're all these things? And I said, no, because depression is an emotion. It's a feeling. You are allowed to feel it.
Yeah,
And
people have chemical imbalances, and
yeah,
traumas, right?
yeah,
And
of course.
everybody deals with trauma differently. In your case, you mimicked the trauma, right?
Yeah.
And then had to come to a realization like, oh, wow, this is not okay.
Hmm.
I am repeating the things that happened to me. And I think that sometimes, and what I've seen in my field, is that a lot of times people repeat the things that were done to them to try to get back their control,
Yeah,
to
that's true.
feel like they're in control, to feel like now I have control because I'm older. I didn't have that control, so I'm going to repeat the same things. It's
Yeah.
like a protective mechanism instead of dealing with the trauma head first and healing from that. And I don't know. I don't really follow Andrew Tate, so I can't really comment much on what he says, but definitely 100%. Somebody being depressed. I mean, depression, anxiety are a normal part of human emotion, just like
Hmm.
happiness and sadness
Yeah.
and excitement. Anxiety is a flight or fight response, right? That's the it's a response that you get when you're uncomfortable and your body's trying to protect you. Depression is, or sadness is, when situation of something bad happens to you. I hope that you're sad about it, right? I hope that you're not having these weird social cues where you're happy when
Hmm.
somebody just that you love died. So they're a normal part of human behavior. And to tell someone, if that's what he's saying to people, that you're a coward because you're depressed, it just means that he, typically what I've seen in the situations like that, where someone's afraid to show their emotions, is because they were raised in a very, very aggressive way.
Yeah.
So they were told that as children. And I had a client recently, without, getting into too much detail because of
Hmm.
HIPAA, that he realized that he could not show emotions to his wife and kids because he was physically and mentally and emotionally abused as a child, and now he had to deal with that. So I'm sorry for anybody who's been told that. That is not true. I have many men that come to me for treatment,
Hmm.
that are just struggling a little bit and need some support. Some are struggling a lot, um, and I'm sorry that your friend is hearing things like that, or heard things like that, and I'm glad that you were able to be there as another human having a human experience for that person. We have to be kind to others, and I think that boys are raised very differently than girls in our society, where they can't show emotion, especially in our community, us being from the same country. If a boy falls, "Oh, get up, you're fine." If a girl falls, everybody's catering to her. So I definitely, if that's what Andrew Tate, if that's his message to men, I disagree. Do I think that there has been an increase in maybe coddling a little bit? But I think that's with men and women in this new generation. I don't think it's just men. I think that this new generation is a little different than us, growing up in many different ways, which um, not so much in their personal life, but in a professional setting. Um, a lot of people don't want to hire people. And I'm not generalizing. I'm not saying everybody from this new generation is like that, but their work ethic is a little different. Their entitlement is, there's a lot of entitlement. But definitely, I think men should be able to express your emotions. Just like women, like we're human. So.
Yeah, we're human beings at the end of the day, and I
Mhm.
feel that I've always said this before. I feel like not one of the, but this is actually a big problem that we have in the world is lack of communication.
Mhm.
I tell people, the reason why there's so many wars, there's so much division, there's so much hate, there's so much, just so many angry people is because there's lack of communication. If people communicated more and people were able to have those tough conversations, the world would be a better
And
place.
agree to disagree, and that's okay,
Yeah,
right? That is totally okay.
exactly.
I have friends that have come from all walks of life, all religions, all backgrounds, political and ethnic. And we don't agree on everything, but we're still able to be friends. And I think that that's probably one of the hardest things in our society right now. that if you're either on the left or the right, you can't be friends with the person. Um, or you can't even be in a relationship. Have you heard of that? I've heard people tell me some of my patients tell me, "Oh, I would never marry my significant other if they were a Democrat and I'm a Republican." Like, I'm like, wow, have we got into that as a society? I think my husband and I don't agree on everything, but we
Mhm.
still love each other. We're still together, and we're trying to make this marriage thing work. And marriage is something that you work on a daily basis, right? It's not like you sign a paper and everything is perfect,
Yeah.
but it's very interesting to hear that kind of in like people say, I would never marry them if they're a political, it's like people saying, I would never marry that person if I'm a Jets fan and they're whatever, a Cowboys fan or whatever. So it's very interesting to hear.
Yeah. That's funny because, you mentioned the football teams and, this young lady that I was dating last year who unfortunately we ended things, and she has been the whole discussion of the Resilience podcast, the Resilience Tribune, and even the documentary. When I met her, I didn't know that she was one of the biggest Eagle fans in the world, and I'm from New York. Of course I like the Giants. And I support the Jets if they're in the Super Bowl. I even
Yeah,
support the Buffalo Bills if they're in the Super Bowl because it's also a New York team. But I never I remember one time saying, like, years ago, and this is when I used to work in Hoboken, New Jersey, because there's a lot of Eagles fans out there. I used to say, these people are so obnoxious. These people are crazy. I hate Eagles fans. And I may have said once in a while, to people like, I am never gonna, date somebody that's an Eagles fan.
I have
And
a story for you. Mhm.
and I eventually ended up falling in love with someone who's an Eagles fan, and I became an Eagles fan shortly after that. That's
Well,
why when the Eagles won the
mhm,
the Super Bowl recently,
mhm.
I was very happy. I was happy for them, and I was happy for the Eagles because Philadelphia is a very special place to me.
Well, my husband is a Patriots fan.
Oh,
He's from New England, and I
ah,
remember hating the Patriots. I hated the Patriots because my sister lives in Boston and she's a super fan, and I used to argue with them. And I said, "Oh, they deflated the ball," and ended up marrying someone who's a Patriots fan, and we actually bought
look at that.
maybe a little Patriots onesie, and I was like, "That's really good." So it's really interesting. That's why you never should say never. That's a
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
advice I would give people. You just never know what life has in store. So
Well, you know what it is, there's this thing that happens in life, from my perspective, that sometimes we don't like certain things, right? But sometimes we're willing to compromise, or we're
mhm,
willing to make that adjustment because it has something to do with somebody that we care about, someone that we love,
correct,
or our perspectives change.
correct.
You know, the relationship prior to that one, the person that I was with, we were together for 2 years.
Mm,
I remember that I was very vocal about a lot of things, and I was very, like, you know, how people say that because I'm a Taurus, I'm very stubborn, and I just had my way of thinking about certain things. And
mm,
she was in my life for 2 years, and she held, I've described this before, but sometimes people come into your life, sometimes in relationship form,
mhm,
and they hold a mirror and they show you who you are. And sometimes you're looking into that mirror and you don't like what you see.
mhm,
And you're like, oh wow, this is how I speak. This is the things that I say.
mm,
This is how I think. And I appreciate that relationship happened. And I'm always going to be thankful for that relationship because it taught me to be a different person for my new relationship. And I know for my last relationship, I was very patient and I was
mm,
very level-headed with so many things. I had consideration for so many things. And the patience part was the biggest thing that blew my mind, because I said to myself, I've known for a fact that I have always been very impatient. I was always used to people telling me, family, friends, everyone, you're very impatient. You're very impatient. You have
mm,
no patience. But this relationship, I was so patient because when my ex-girlfriend started to show me a side of her, I guess, like the side where you get comfortable because now you're dating, now
yeah,
you're sleeping with each other and you see each other often, and now there's things about each other that, sometimes, the person starts to get comfortable. I normally would have been the type of person to be like, okay, I'm not tolerating this, I'm not tolerating that. But I remember how much patience I had with her. And I don't think she saw that, but I know that there was a lot of situations and scenarios where I normally would have reacted a certain way, or I would hear certain things that she would say, and I actually remained patient. And the reason why I did that is because when I was in the last relationship, there was things that I would say, and my ex would listen to me and say, "Okay, I'll just wait for you to finish speaking." And then after would finish speaking, she would say to me, "Well, I just wanted to tell you about how I feel about these things that you
Mhm.
mentioned, and this and this and this." And she was like, "This is why I don't think it's a good idea to say this in front of a large crowd and whatever." And the point is, I was able to learn a lot of things.
Mm.
And when we broke up, um, and she said to me, "Well, I hope that, you know, um, I had some type of purpose in your life." I remember saying to her, "You did." And I said to her, I literally
That was very mature of you guys to actually
yeah,
have a conversation like that.
yeah, of course. And I had I remember just for about 10 minutes straight telling her everything that she did that helped my thought process change, and just helped me understand things better.
And grow as a person.
And yeah, and the things that I was so judgmental about,
Mm.
I realized that now I had more empathy towards that. And now I saw things differently. And, she was very surprised. And she says, "Really? I made that much of a difference?" I said, "Yes, you did." I said, "So if you think you're walking away from this relationship with a L, you're not. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to learn these things." And then when I moved to my new relationship and I started sharing some of those aspects and some of those things with my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "Where did you learn this from?" And I was like, you know, past experiences, and just developing. And we're always developing. We should, as humans, we should be developing. We should be evolving. Of course, when you and I first met, there was a lot of immaturity,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. We were
And
kids.
a lot of things that we entertained that now I don't entertain.
Mhm.
And one of the things is that the difference between me and some of the people I grew up with is that some of these people don't have the patience for certain things. For example, like with kids, and they were like, "Oh, kids are bad," or "Kids are this," and I said, we were kids at one point, and we were
Mhm.
pretty
Mhm.
much doing some of the things that they were doing.
Or
And
even
I
worse.
tell people, we got to be more teachable now. We have to be able to understand things, because again, the communication part that I mentioned, we need to communicate more. And my last relationship, there was a lot of hard there was a lot of those uncomfortable
Mm.
conversations that normally in the past I wouldn't entertain. I would walk away from it. It would turn into an argument. And I'm glad that even when my ex and I broke up, our breakup was so civil. Eventually, how she acted, after that was different. But at least that night when we broke up, everything was so civil. And
As it
I
should
was,
be. We're adults. You would
yeah,
think that that's
yeah,
how things, sometimes things don't work out, and that's okay.
yeah. And I was able to take at least that, with me. Like,
Mhm.
hey, look, it could have been worse.
Yeah.
There was some issues that we were having, from, the holidays,
Mhm.
and I spoke up about it, and I said, "Look, these are some things that are bothering me." And even though she didn't look at it like, "Oh, let's sit down and talk about it," it was more of like, "Well, maybe we're not compatible, because if this is how you feel, then maybe we're not compatible." Even the way I handled it, I could have been like, "Oh, how dare you? How dare you gaslighting me?" And I didn't do any of that. I listened to
Mhm.
what she said, even though I didn't necessarily agree with half of the things that she was saying. I still listened to her, and I still pleaded my case and explained why I felt the way that I did, but also tried to understand where she was coming from as well, too.
You gave her grace.
Yeah. So, on the topic of mental health, um, I wanted to ask you, how
Mhm.
do you think that AI and mental health intersect? And how can women entrepreneurs contribute to the future of mental health care?
I think if you're not using AI in almost every aspect of a business, you know, um, you're gonna stay behind.
Mm,
Um, and I think that you are able to use it in mental health because you're able to capture more patients when you're using AI. because AI is going to work 24/7. So those patients that as healthcare providers, especially in psychiatry, to miss because we're so busy. I think mental health providers are constantly on go, go, go mode, and we're always working. You wouldn't miss that with an AI because the AI will be working for you 24 hours a day, unless you're paying someone to do that. So it gives your patients more quality, um, because you're always available to take that call and able to schedule them for that visit. It also saves you money as somebody as most healthcare providers, especially in mental health, are small practices, and the overhead is a lot on all the different things you need to have in place, especially in psychiatry, to make sure that you're in compliance with the laws and regulations. So, I think that if AI is the wave, and if you don't have that in your business, in some sort of capacity, um, you're not going to be as competitive, and it depends on where you want to go, right? It depends on how big you want to get. Like I want to be on a national level with Blend Telepsych, um and so because I want to be able to provide holistic, um telepsychiatry, faith-based telepsychiatry, services to everybody who wants it. So kind of forecasting that would be the avenue that I want to go. Um, but yeah, no, I think AI, they're even AI is even aside from what I'm doing, AI is even becoming, they've created this crisis management system where you can talk to this AI, and it will uh figure out whether you need to speak to a provider or whether you're okay.
Mm.
So that's even like, which will decrease the amount of hospitalizations that somebody's going to have for
Mhm.
psychiatric reasons. So it's not just like the chat and and these are the two agents that we are putting out there right now, but there's it's an ecosystem of agents, a total of 16, I think,
Mhm.
and that do different things and communicate with each other. And the craziest thing is that these agents actually retrain themselves. So you train them once, you customize it to that person's business, and then they retrain themselves so you don't have to keep retraining.
Wow.
They keep learning and evolving. It's kind of scary, but it is scary. And I think that that's one of the hardest parts of selling this, right? Of putting this out there, is that it is scary. Like you said, I just started with Chat GPT, so I understand the kind of hesitancy. Our agents are HIPAA compliant, so they protect information, the patient's information. So um, there's a lot of security. There are a lot of health. I googled how many mental health care providers there are, but for some reason there's not. I don't know where they're at, because I have a lot of patients that are struggling to find mental health care providers,
Mhm.
who they reach out to a clinic and they're fully booked for months. So it's very interesting because when you Google it, there's hundreds of thousands, but maybe not all practicing. Um, so I think that we need to just, I think a lot of patients tend to feel because more women have mental health issues statistically than men, or at least talk about it, right? Because of that thing we were talking about, how men are treated like kind of like like you said, like Andrew Tate, like, oh, you need to just man up, and women are coddled, and we're like, oh, you okay, So I think more women tend to be more open with that. So we have to have more female healthcare providers open up practices and put themselves out there, um, in order to improve society, because there are a lot of people that are struggling and there's not enough of us. I don't understand it. Maybe, I'm a Chat GPT user too. I love it. And it said that there's hundreds of thousands. So I assume and there's more graduating, but maybe people are just too scared. Um, and fear in life will stop you from doing so many different things. So
So, you know, I know that you started Blend
mhm.
recently, and you've had 5 degrees. well, have 5 degrees. You became a doctor in between all of that. You mentioned your daughter, your husband as well. So I know that this journey, it's fair to say that you haven't done all of this alone.
No.
So I wanted to ask you, who are some women, whether historical figures, mentors, or peers, who have inspired you on your journey?
So I'm a very interesting person because I'm never starstruck. There's no stars or celebrities or women outside of my family that I'm like, oh my God, you know? So I think that the women that have inspired me to be this person are the women in my family. My mother, the close women in my family, my mother, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and my two maternal aunts who I'm very close to. We are very close family.
Mhm.
They're such nurturers. Like my mom is still a big, big nurturer. Like we'll go to her house and she'll do everything for me. And I'm grown and old. And so they have inspired me to be this person. Even this, I think my personality comes a lot from my mom, who's a good person, and that woman will take the shirt off her back. She still does so much for the family. She's the matriarch of the family. She's the oldest of her sisters, and one of the, I think, the second oldest on that side, on the maternal side. So I think the women in my family, the ones closest to me, are the ones that continue to inspire me to just want to be a better wife, a better mother, a better daughter, a better friend. And yeah, my mom is awesome. She's like heaven sent. She's like an angel. She's a mama bear. She's very quiet, but don't mess with her kids, or her grandkids. And she's very dedicated. And um, I'm very lucky. I'm truly not, I wouldn't say lucky, but blessed in that aspect. So
I like that you said the word blessed because I don't like using the word lucky. I think
no,
that everything.
I have to kind of take that out of my vocabulary. I think it's a blessing from God. You know
Yes.
how blessed are we that we are able to
Yes.
have these women and these people in our circle. And I hear so much in my field about
Mhm.
people that were neglected by their parents, or even sexual abuse, and or they don't even talk to their family. And I'm still very close to my family. So
That's good. Very blessed and fortunate. I
yes,
love.
I like that
I,
word.
tru- I
Fortunate.
truly, yeah, I truly believe in us being fortunate. Um, I know I asked you before, what does resilience mean to you? But I wanted to ask you now, what does resilience mean to you as a woman in leadership? And how do you apply it in your work and personal life?
Resilience means to me, um, knowing your worth, knowing your strength, um, knowing that you can persevere through anything.
Mm,
Um, and in my personal life, it means getting through the trials and tribulations of motherhood, of being in a marriage, right?
mhm.
It's okay. It's okay not to know it all. It's okay to grow with your kids. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. It's okay to make mistakes in your marriage and figure out how to fix them. We're not perfect. It's Life is a journey, you know.
Yes.
So I think that's what it means to me. Just kind of pushing through even the dark times in life, um, and being a person of faith, that so that you could feel peace even through the darkness.
Mhm. I like that. I really
That's
do.
what it means to me. So,
I like that. I really, that's very insightful to share. And you know, we're going to be wrapping up soon, and I have one more question to ask you. But again, I wanted to thank you for taking the time today for to be part of this episode.
mhm.
Um, it's so interesting to see how much you've evolved.
I know,
And,
both of us.
and to see where you are in life. And thank you for creating Blend. Um,
Thank you
I
for
know you,
having me. I really
of course.
appreciate this. I don't. I've gotten opportunities to go on other things, and I really don't. I'm a very busy person, as you know. So I
Yeah.
don't really take the time, but I felt like this was, I've known you for a while. I respect you. And I felt like it was important for me to definitely support you in this.
Thank you.
And as people of color, we have to support each other
Of
as
course.
minorities. And this has been so much fun. I mean, we've caught up, and it's been great. So.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, I'm a big fan of women in business, women in tech, and women just becoming entrepreneurs. You know, my grandmother came to this country to chase that American dream, as they say. And you know, I've mentioned my grandmother's story on this podcast several times, how she escaped the regime of Trujillo.
Mm,
He wanted to get rid of her because she was helping people, and he didn't want that. And dictators don't ever want.
they never
Dictators
want.
always want, and they always want to control who has what. And when he found out that my grandmother was feeding the Haitians, um, he lost it. And you know, my grandmother was warned so many times, but you know, my grandmother always went out there and did what she needed to do because she knew that, you know, we're all God's children, and you know
Amen.
what's the only thing that makes us different is that some of us look differently. You know, our skin
Mhm,
tones, our hair color, our eyes, our beliefs, and whatnot. But we're all technically the same thing, the human race.
mhm,
And you know, when I was a child, she would share all this stuff with me. She would share all this insight with me, and half of the stuff
mhm.
I was able to process. Half of it I wasn't able to process, and I never
Yeah.
understood why she was the way she was and why she would say the things that she would say. But I realized, you know, in my young adult life that I was inspired by her.
Mm,
And, you know, ever since then, I realized, okay, this is the type of woman that I would appreciate in my life.
mm,
This is the type of woman that I would want to lead a marriage with me one day, and a woman who would raise children with me. You know, you mentioned it earlier that, you know, with this generation, a lot of people are different. From
mhm,
our generation, some people are more traditional. Our parents' generation, of course, that's where the
mhm,
tradition started. But you know, in life, we just learn how people are. We either accept who they are and love them unconditionally, or we could still love them unconditionally, but not necessarily, um, you know, affiliate or associate with some of the things that they do. You know, there's a lot of people from my past that I don't keep in touch with and whatnot, obviously because we've evolved. But with you, it's been different because you know you know, once I started to see, you know, the path that you was taking, I said, you know, this is very inspirational. This is something that I like. This is something that I look forward to. I'm not a big fan of most of these women that are out here that are attracted to me, who will say things like, oh, you know, I want this, I want that, and you know, this entitlement and all this stuff. I like women that know their worth, they know where they stand, they know that they also have something to offer as well too, and women that are just go-getters. And you know, one of the things that I tell people all the time, and I tell my therapist all the time, is like I like women that are go-getters, women that actually achieve, because my mother, she made the sacrifices that she made to make sure that her children came out well. And you know, my mom sacrificed a lot, and I turned out to be a good kid. And I've always told her that. I was like, Mom, I hope you're proud of me, because you know, you've never had to worry about me being in prison.
mhm.
You've never had to worry about getting phone calls about me at night or whatever the case may be, that I was doing this, that I was doing that. So I hope I made you proud somehow. And my mom goes, oh yeah, of course. She was like, you was one of the very few of the headaches that I got. And I said, good, 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 you know, and I'm glad to hear that. So um you know, resilience is something that I learned a few years ago. I still didn't know what it meant. I still didn't know what it was, but it's been following me for the last few years. And like I said, it's been following me this entire journey.
Mm,
I appreciate your resilience. I
thank
appreciate that,
you.
even though
Likewise.
at one point you was a single mother, as you mentioned,
It was.
you never gave up on love,
Mm-mm.
and now you have two kids.
I do.
And you know, I'm very proud of you, because at the end of
Thank
the day,
you.
normally some people would just give up, or some people will
It's
have a
easy.
certain, yeah,
It's easy to give up. It's
yeah,
right.
and
People like what they're comfortable in. So.
yeah, and some women would probably have resentment towards every other man and
Mm,
whatnot, but you didn't let that happen to you. You gave love another chance. You know,
mhm.
you have a husband who's treating you good, a husband who's actually running blend with you.
Yes.
And I love to see that. I love to see power couples, and I
Mhm.
love to see folks that are married and have kids and are setting that example for their kids, you know. and showing their kids, like, look, you don't have to be exactly like mom and dad when you grow up, but remember what mom and dad provided for you. Remember
Correct.
what mom and dad showed you,
Mhm.
and you do what you want with that information.
Mhm.
So we have now um you know gotten to the end of this episode, and before I let you go, there's a question that I want to ask you that I ask everyone, and that question is, what is your message to the world and why?
Put God first in everything that you do. When you wake up, be thankful for waking up and having a roof over your head. I was a person that I didn't have God in my life before, but I had everything that people would want, right? The success, the money, the cars, the big house. I traveled to almost every continent, and my cup felt half full. And people would say, "Wow, you're so lucky." And I would be like, "You know what? I don't feel that way. And I don't know if I'm ever going to feel content with the things
Mm,
that I have." And it took me having a very profound experience where I felt the Holy Spirit and was prayed over, that it was so life changing for me that I decided to work on my relationship with God. And even through the darkness, and even through the times, the rough times, right? Because like I said in the beginning, life has ebbs and flows. I feel such peace, I feel such happiness.
that's good.
I'm able to not feel anxious and depressed, and I'm able to think things more logically when things are happening. And I put God first in everything. In everything that I do, I always thank God. So that has definitely made a huge, huge difference. I'm content with my life, and feel blessed for the things that He continues to do. But yes, my biggest advice is put God first, build that relationship with God. A lot of my patients are like, "Well, I don't go to church and I don't do this." And I was like, it just starts with the relationship with God, and let Him guide you to wherever it is that He wants you to go and what He wants you to do. Just having a conversation, um, and making Him your best friend. So that would be my biggest advice. Don't give up, and put God first in everything that you do.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I love that you mentioned God, because in this journey of resilience, I've drawn closer to God. And for those that know me, know that I don't have a certain religion that I attend to. I was born Catholic, but I have been very open through the spirituality, where I've listened to everyone's perspectives on
Mhm.
whether they're Christian, Buddhist, Catholic, Jew, whatever the case may be. And one thing I can say is that in a world filled with challenges and uncertainties, it's essential to remember the profound strength and guidance that faith in God provides. I also want to let people know that embracing faith doesn't mean having all the answers,
Correct.
but it's rather, it means trusting in a higher purpose and believing that even in difficult times, we are never alone. In this resilience journey, I've realized that I'm not alone, and I've also told people that as well too, that they're not alone as well. So one thing I know is that faith encourages us to take bold steps, knowing that our prayers and actions, when aligned with divine will, can open new doors and opportunities. So I just want people to know that it's okay to have faith in God. And whether you believe in Him or not, just know that if you have um, something that's bothering you, whatever the case may be, just pray to Him. And I promise you that your prayers will be answered. Like Yina mentioned earlier, she had all these things and she was not content. I felt the same way at one point. When I started my company, I had a lot of things. And it's things that eventually I said to myself, wow, isn't it crazy that I wanted these things all along? And this is why I worked hard. But then there was that void that
Yeah,
still
that
wasn't filling.
void. Yep.
and and
Yep.
and the void to me was what was missing. It wasn't a companion, it wasn't a partner, it wasn't someone who loved me and accepted me for who I am. What was missing was that whole
Mhm.
situation of not taking things serious with God. So I noticed that once I started talking more to God,
Mhm.
life started getting a little bit more clear for me.
Mhm.
Things started to open up for me, because it was just so cloudy. It was so, like, my vision was so blurred. And, one of the best things that ever happened to me is literally praying to God and asking God to help me find a way. And he's done it. He's done it many times.
I mean,
So
it's a beautiful thing. People don't even know. Like people don't
yes,
even know. Like there's something in us always seeking something like that, and we don't even realize it. And it's when you actually just it's something that's free. You don't even have to pay for it. It's there. You don't have to turn on a candle. You know, us being Dominican, you know exactly what that means. You don't have to turn on a candle. You don't have to, you just literally just have to talk to him and have a relationship with him and allow him to guide you. And there are so many things that I'm just like, why is this happening? And then he shows me why it happened. And it might be something that I was not something pleasant. And then it kind of works itself out on why it happened. So just I tell people just give it a chance. See how it goes. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing when you pray and when you have a relationship with him. But I'm doubtful that nothing will happen because he's definitely working in my life.
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, once again, I really truly appreciate your time today, being here and us discussing Blend. I wanted to ask you, where can people find Blend on social
We
media?
Yeah, so we have so many profiles, but you can go on www.blend.com, so www.bl3nd.com. We also have another domain which is for the AI if people are interested in that. It's www.bl3nd.ai. So we do have two websites. We're also restructuring and trying to figure things out because that's what business is about. It's constantly changing and evolving and seeing what works and what doesn't. But yeah, they can always reach us there. And here we are. We're here to, help even give information if somebody just wants to book an appointment to find out a little bit more, no strings attached. But yeah, AI is the wave. So either get on the bus or get left behind.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. So, folks, like Gina mentioned, her websites will be right here on the bottom for you to see. You guys are on social media as well, too,
We
right?
are. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Facebook. We're everywhere.
So all the links will be right here on the
Mhm.
bottom. And this is it. Folks, this was a great episode. I haven't interviewed a woman on the podcast since last year,
Oh
and I'm
wow.
glad that the first person to interview again was Yina. And I had a very good time speaking to you today. So, keep
Likewise.
doing everything that you're doing.
You too, Rob. You too.
I hope we can keep in touch as far as
For
Blend, because who
sure.
knows, maybe at some point I'm gonna, need some
Yeah.
services and whatnot. So it's been a pleasure. And folks, I look forward to episode 27, which will be in April. And for now, on behalf of the Resilient Podcast and Yina, um, I want to remind everyone to remain resilient, and God bless always. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.